Blackstone Audio presents Robert E. Lee, Lessons in Leadership, by Noah Andre Trudeau. Foreword by General Wesley K. Clark. Foreword. General Robert E. Lee, noblest son of the South, destined from his first days at West Point for greatness, was the tragic hero of a lost war. For those of us a certain age and from parts of the United States, he is the first general we ever learned of, the most important general we ever discussed in school, and a leader we strove to emulate. To some, Lee's is a familiar story, glorified once again each February in schools and newspaper editorials across the South. To others, why a losing general and a lost cause should be so revered remains a bit of a mystery. The answers, and a few necessary correctives, are here in Noah Andre Trudeau's sparkling biography. He cuts to the core of Lee, his background, contributions, strengths, weaknesses, and failures. And in so doing, he shines a strong light on both the terrible conflict that divided our nation, as well as many of the sectional political issues that have cast a long shadow in American politics. Lee certainly came from good stock. His father was a Revolutionary War hero, and his mother stemmed from one of Virginia's top families. As Trudeau tells it, Lee was brought up with a doting and dependent mother who compensated for an absentee, famous father. His upbringing, his natural talents, and his excellent early education all combined to make him stand out at West Point. He graduated in the class of 1829 with high academic standing and the high esteem of his classmates. He was commissioned into the Corps of Engineers. Excellence at West Point is not necessarily an accurate indicator of future accomplishments, but in Lee's case, his achievements there, and especially his character and bearing, accurately foretold a brilliant career. As a young engineer, he was given independent responsibilities and leadership which might not have gone to an infantryman or artillerist. His eye for terrain and his natural disposition to bold action earned him a brilliant reputation as the young captain who opened the way for General Winfield Scott's successful campaign into the heart of Mexico. With his participation in the highest councils of war, Lee no doubt honed an interest and instinct for strategy that would make him a formidable opponent to a series of Union leaders. At the end of the Mexican War, a still youthful Lee went on to achieve all the successes a small army could bestow, the superintendency of the military academy at West Point, and the transfer to the command track with service as deputy commander of the U.S. 2nd Cavalry Regiment, and then command of the U.S. Army's 2nd Cavalry on the Texas frontier in the late 1850s. Somehow, Lee juggled all this military achievement with a vibrant family life. He courted and married Mary Custis, a descendant of George Washington's wife Martha, and a member of an even more illustrious Virginia family. He and Mary raised 7 children. By all reports, their life was happy and adoring. Fame, success, family, social prestige, no officer could have asked for more. Then, the tragedy of America's fateful reckoning with sectionalism and slavery intervened. Lee was confronted personally and profoundly with perhaps the deepest conflict that could affect a soldier, loyalty to his country and his army, versus loyalty to his state, family, and home. And it was Lee's character in facing, choosing, and living through the consequences of this terrible dilemma that has so elevated him in the annals of American history. Trudeau tells the vivid story of the battles, the terrible, bloody struggle at Antietam, where Lee's plans were captured before the battle by the Union, Lee's effort behind Stonewall Jackson's Shenandoah Valley campaign, the decisive defeat of the Union forces at Chancellorsville, the tragedy at Gettysburg, and on the final soulful ending at Appomattox Courthouse. This is as clear and as gripping a recounting as has ever been written. But even more importantly, Trudeau takes us behind the battles into Lee's relationships, gestures, moods, and style. Lee was actually offered the command of the Union forces, perhaps not surprisingly, since his patron, Winfield Scott, was still ensconced as the president's military advisor. Instead, Lee resigned from the U.S. Army and accepted his duty as military advisor to Confederate President Jefferson Davis, himself a West Pointer, and former U.S. Secretary of War and a contemporary of Lee's. He gained Davis's trust and confidence sufficiently to enable him to have a relatively free hand in the strategy of the war in the critical Northern Virginia area at some crucial times. Trudeau chronicles Lee's relationships with Jackson, Longstreet, and Beauregard, relationships that were vital and sometimes challenging and difficult. Most valuable are the tantalizing glimpses into Lee's character in this book. Retreat, withdrawal, and defeat are the toughest military